Brigades were called to Spears Point Park at 2:30 Saturday morning. It appeared vandals had broken into the old pavilion, setting it alight. The right corner of the hall and a large section of the roof were destroyed in the blaze, but the damage didn't end there. Most of the cladding around the building had been kicked off. Although the complex didn't suffer any structural damage in the senseless attack, it will cost the community of Lake Macquarie $20,000 to repair.
We are covered by insurance, but even so, I don't think that the people of the city should have to put up with that sort of mindless vandalism.
Mayor Ivan Welsh estimates it will be 4 weeks before the hall is ready to use again. Police are still investigating the incident.
The Kurri Football Club hold a unique record by producing more rugby league internationals than any other country club in Australia, 10 in total. Mick Shields passed away a few years back with the distinction of being Kurri's first representative in 1935. Noel White will be at the function on Saturday evening, and he played a test for Australia in 1946. Dennis Booker, who died last year, made his international debut for Wales and made 6 test appearances between 48 and 52. Rhys Duncan was playing for Kurri when he was called upon to make his international debut and retired after 21 games, including 2 tests for his country. Jack Lumsden played 1 test against the Kiwis in 1952, and his brother Eddie became a household name with 15 test and 42 appearances in the green and gold. The legend John Sattler played 13 international matches, including 4 tests. Gary Sullivan, 12 games, 2 tests and the World Cup final in 1972. Big Bill Hamilton played 8 games for Australia, and Jeff Masterman played in 2 tests and 10 internationals. Along with Noel White, the Lumsden boys, Bill Hamilton and Jeff Masterman, will be on hand to reminisce.
Thanks to the Workers Club, Mike, we're holding a function in the auditorium. The internationals will be asked to speak on their rugby league experiences, which I think everybody will be looking forward to. The international court will be for sale on the night, and we hope the club will be able to, make some money there to help things roll along a bit.
I bet there'll be some tales coming out from the internationals.
I'm looking forward to it anyway. I think everybody in Kurri is actually, it's a big occasion for the town, and it's a big occasion for rugby league, I think.
And the former Test greats would be thrilled with Kurri's resurgence, which sees them in the 5 of the Tooheys Newcastle Premiership after a 44-2 hammering of neighbours Cessnock on the weekend in front of a great crowd.
Oh, it's really a great feeling. The players themselves said it's really like winning a grand final, the way the reception they got off the crowd. And Gavin himself said he had a funny feeling when he come through the gate. He's never felt a buzz like that in all his life, in all his playing career.
Newcastle is the worst place to live in Australia if you're renting a home. Rents here have risen more than in any other city in the country. 3-bedroomed homes to let have increased 13.5% to take the median rent to $175 a week, while 2-bedroomed units have jumped 12% since December to $140 a week. High interest rates have been blamed, though it's recognised that last December's earthquake and resulting damage to buildings made the situation in Newcastle even worse. The vacancy rate in the city is the lowest in Australia, at 0.6%. That means rental properties are filling almost as quickly as they become available. And the forecast for Newcastle from the Real Estate Institute is bleak, with rents predicted to increase even further. An institute spokesman said the Department of Housing may be forced to offer more subsidised housing or offer increased rental assistance for low-income families in Newcastle. Rebecca Skinner, NBN News.
The Knights have won the race to snare brilliant 5/8 or centre John Schuster, who cut the Aussies to pieces in last year's Bledisloe Cup match with fellow defector John Gallagher. Schuster has played 10 tests for the All Blacks, and Hunter Valley rugby fans would have caught a glimpse of his prowess in the match against New South Wales Country 2 years ago. Schuster will arrive in Newcastle in 7 days' time for the remainder of this season and has signed until the end of the 1993 season. And Schuster could be considered the Knights' biggest signing in their short history.
That's a fair comment. He's got a proven track record. He's going to lift our performance level, obviously, because of his experience, and definitely a major signing. Whether he's the most major or not is hard to say at this stage, but let's see what time shows us.
The Junior Knights have been sensational in their 8 lead-up matches, being undefeated, and tomorrow they come up against a team that was also unconquered in their 8 games, Manly. At a light training session at Hawkins Oval an hour ago, Peter Sharp was nervous and cautious in regards to the opposition.
Very athletic side, very quick, unpredictable. Yeah, it's a very good football side, Manly.
But if the Knights turn on the sort of football they produced against Eastern Suburbs a fortnight ago, then they should become the Knights' first team to win a premiership. The foundation will be laid with their huge forward pack, and players like Captain Rodney Howe will ensure they are always going forward. And aided by a very slick back line, will start favourites for the title. A guard of honour was formed by the Knights' reserve grade and President's Cup teams as the SG Ball side took to Parramatta Stadium's hallowed turf, and the opening hits by both sides would have done justice in the big time. The Knights signalled their intention of playing it in the forwards, and in the 5th minute Brenton Pomeroy smashed his way over for the first try of the match, and with Scott Bradley's conversion the Knights led 6-0. But 5 minutes later, Manly hit back with a magnificent individual effort from fullback John Hopati, who brushed off numerous Knights tacklers before crashing his way over wide out. And the Sea Eagles nearly took the lead, but desperate defence held them out. Right on the first half siren, Chris Deaver hoisted the ball high towards Manly's line, and incredibly no one went for it. Deaver followed up, regathered, and was able to touch down under the uprights, and Newcastle led 12-4 at the break. 8 minutes into the second half, Manly won a scrum against the feed. It went quickly out to Holpati, who again walked through some ordinary Knights defence, and the big striding fullback had the crowd on its feet, and he brought the Sea Eagles to within 2 points. The Knights' defence stiffened, and in the 18th minute they went in from a scrum win. The ball went out to fullback Greg Fleming, and he found his winger Patrick Nandy in support, and he scored the Knights' 3rd try. Coach Peter Sharp swung a couple of changes, and it was giant Tim Madison who barged his way over through the Manly defence, and the Knights led by 12. To put the issue beyond doubt, Scott Bradley snapped a smart field goal, and the Knights were home 23-10. And it was a great moment for Captain Rodney Howe as he accepted the Knights' first premiership trophy.
In 1950, BHP commissioned this plaque to commemorate 48 company seamen who died during World War II. Today, 48 years after the Iron Chieftain sank off Terrigal, the first memorial service was held for the men who perished on board that ship and its sister, the Iron Knight. On the 3rd of June 1942, 12 lives were lost and 36 men saved when a Japanese submarine torpedoed the Iron Chieftain en route to Newcastle. Ron Birchall and Max Bland were aboard the ship and were forced overboard as the ship went down.
I actually tread in water and watched the ship go down, really, as she went in the last one, and went under and then come back up again. And I was still treading water there for a while, and it was raining, and it was drizzled rain and bright moonlight, and I could see the raft over on the crest of another wave coming up, and I managed to get over there later on and got aboard it.
By the time I got down to the main deck, the thing was underwater and I ended up hanging onto an oil drum. But eventually they got the lifeboat away and I got into that. Didn't you? 3 days in the lifeboat and we pulled into Tugwell Lakes, was it? I think they call it, I don't know.
8 months later, the BHP-owned Iron Knight was also hit. Norm Elborn was one of only 13 survivors.
I never had any chance at all, really. It was gone in less than 5 minutes, I'd say. The bridge on fire, and then she spit in halves with a
full load of iron ore in her, so it was hopeless for the rest of the men trying to get out. We was in the water until daylight hours, and then we eventually got into a raft and picked up 6 others that were in a busted raft. The drums had busted in her, so we took them on board our raft, and the coast was too far away. We could only see Australia like a cloud, and we just had to float around then, jumping in and out of the raft so we could get some water and hard dog biscuits, what was in there.
These are just a few of an estimated 300 birds which died after rafters they were roosting on were covered with a sticky gel-like substance. RNZ Mines at Tomago was trying to deter the swallows from roosting in one of its buildings. A spokesman from the company says they were acting on advice from a pest control company, which suggested using the thick gel. However, the plan backfired and the RSPCA was called in.
Heavy car grease, which like an actual grease, and once it gets onto the birds it thins out and it gums up all the flying mechanism in the wings and into the feathers of the birds, and once that happens the birds can only sit on the ground.
The Native Animal Trust Fund rescued and cleaned around 70 birds. However, they say many died.
Well, the ones we saw, there was 40 odd that were affected, but that we saw, but we believe there was quite a few others involved too. It could have been up to 300 odd birds.
The RSPCA says it won't lay any charges against RNZ Mines as they were acting on the advice of the pest control company and meant no harm to the birds. However, the society is critical of the pest control company, and it's now up to the National Parks and Wildlife Service to decide if any legal action will be taken against them. Jodie McKay for NBN News.
Stephen Kennedy hard at work in a local pharmacy. It seems a relatively safe environment, but don't be fooled. When drugs are involved, things can turn sour without a moment's notice.
I've had guns shoved in my face, and I've been chased around the shop with a knife by people because I've refused to dispense drugs.
Mr Kennedy claims recent media reports of a Medicare racket involving the sedative Rohypnol are just part of the prescription drugs problem. He says others, such as Serapax and Valium, pose a far greater risk to the hunter community.
Because they're such a very good drug used in the correct way, on doctors' advice for the right sorts of situations, they tend to, lose sight of the fact that they are still widely used, it seems to me, as part of that major problem we're talking about, and that's drug and alcohol abuse.
The Hunter Pharmacists Association has welcomed government plans to investigate the Rohypnol scandal, but says the inquiry should be expanded to include a full range of potentially dangerous prescription drugs. Bruce McKenzie, NBN News.
The Hunter Region Women in Management Award began 5 years ago. Since then, it has acknowledged some of the region's most prominent and successful business women, including Margaret Egan, who markets a range of surfing fashion, and last year's winner Nolene Hearn, manager of GIO Financial Services. The award is open to all women from all avenues of life and includes not only the private and public sectors, but also voluntary organisations.
Women who have achieved success in their own particular field. Now, we have women from academic life, we have women who are in business in their own right or jointly with their husbands, from all walks of life, in fact. Members of our group at this particular period in time include a shipping agent, a lady who teaches relaxation techniques, all varied walks of life. That's the ladies, that we're looking for.
Nominees are judged on their managerial, leadership and organisational abilities, with the winner announced in September.
The meeting was called to highlight the plight of 3 park residents who claim they've been evicted without reason, which is legal under present legislation. Trouble began when President of the Mobile Home and Park Residents Association, Bert Powells, called for a vote on the need for new legislation.
You are doing more damage through the politicians that are sitting here today.
Members of another group, the newly named Park Village Tenants Association, felt this would jeopardise the fight against eviction of one of the residents, whose case has been brought up in Parliament by member for Gosford, Chris Harcher. He is also campaigning for new legislation.
In New South Wales, we now have 100,000 people living in permanent accommodation on caravan parks. It's no longer a situation before where they were simply used for holiday owners, and accordingly the residential rights of these people have to be fully protected. What they do is make an enormous investment. They make a whole change of lifestyle to move into the parks, and the responsibility on government is to ensure that their rights therefore are fully respected and protected.
He said that before 1986 permanent living in parks was not possible, and legislation brought in then did not cater adequately for mobile home owners, many of whom have $50,000 equity in their homes. He said a working party was due to report its findings in the next few months. But the meeting again disintegrated into chaos over another resident who has been evicted.
The Motel development is proposed for this block of land facing Charlestown Road, now occupied by a tyre service and smash repair business. The $1.9 million development includes an underground car park, shopping centre, restaurant and 68 motel rooms. A feature of the proposal is a landscape shopping arcade on the roof of the building. Council, though, is expected to reject the proposal primarily because of its height. At 27 metres, the proposed motel will overshadow nearby buildings and dominate the skyline. Council studies have also shown that the volume of traffic on Charlestown Road is already at full capacity. Council, though, does not rule out the possibility of such a development on the site in the future, saying it could consider a similar proposal which is 20 metres high, 7 metres less than proposed. Such a proposal would also have to be supported by a comprehensive traffic study which does not depend on access from the already congested Charlestown Road. Jodie McKay for NBN News.
The Wool Exchange on the corner of King and Brown Street has been home to Newcastle's wool sales since the 1930s. But the hot, overcrowded auction room with not enough office space for buyers and brokers was becoming less suitable with each sale. It was known that the wool industry was looking for another sales venue, and that could have meant Newcastle losing its status as a major wool selling centre. The building was purchased by the Doherty Group in December last year and has since undergone extensive renovation.
When we purchased the building, there wasn't enough accommodation in here, and some of the buyers were in other buildings, which was creating some problems. But now we can accommodate everybody in here, and it really is a wool exchange.
The ground floor is being redesigned, and there are plans for a King Street restaurant or coffee shop. The two main sales auditoriums are unique to the city and will retain their unusual Art Deco styling. Upstairs roof replacement has made way for 14 new offices, each with independent air conditioning and communications. Tony Doherty is planning a wider use for the building, with wool sales using the space just 1 week a month.
And we can lease it off for auctions of any kind, which is ideally set up for that. So that's on the drawing board, yes.
With more than 20 individual tenants each agreeing to 5-year leases, the world's major wool buyers and sellers have now made a firm commitment to Newcastle's future as a wool centre. John Church, NBN News.
The ocean pollution debate is not a new one, but the results of 2 Sydney studies have caused another outcry. It's claimed 1 in 4 Sydney people will get sick after a day at the beach. But the Hunter Water Board says there's no way that sort of problem has drifted this far north.
We have had a very good result in the last 12 months of our beach monitoring. We are well in advance in Sydney in terms of ocean outfalls and putting secondary treatment in. It is very disturbing to see those results. Fortunately in Newcastle we're not in that same position.
Authorities do admit to occasional problems around the Swansea area, but say Hunter beachgoers have nothing to fear.
It's always difficult to say exactly where pollution might come from. So there's always a slight risk in anything you do, but as far as the Water Board is concerned, we're taking every effort to minimise any risk that might flow from our sewage works.
But that doesn't wash with local surfers.
Anyone who says that we haven't got a problem with sewage pollution in Newcastle is mad, because we've got an ocean outfall at Burwood Beach, and it spews millions of gallons of sewage into the water each day. And I think until it's taken to the 3rd stage of treatment, then no one can really claim that we don't have a problem.
Richards has perhaps spent more time at Newcastle's beaches than anyone alive, and says until the primitive system now being used is upgraded, the problem will remain.
200 years later, we're still doing exactly the same thing. So civilised man takes a dump in the morning and some other man goes for a surf in it in the afternoon.
Pepper Tree is the name of the small allotment tucked away off Halls Lane in Peckolben. It's been the home of winemaker Murray Robson since 1975. Robson was best known in the valley for his small winery at Mount View, but became a victim of the stock market crash of 1987. 3 years on, he's about to transform his home and land into a premium tourist venue. The Peppers Hotel Group has plans to develop top-class accommodation with no more than 15 rooms on the site. Robson himself is building a new winery and tasting room to produce just 10,000 cases a year. He ceremoniously turned the first sod on that part of the project this week, witnessed by his other partners.
Well, we're doing a project of 3 different styles of business, all trading at the top end of the market and complementing each other by 3 families which are well known in various fields.
To complement the accommodation and winery development, Chef Robert Molyneux from the Cellar Restaurant will develop the historical cottage which has been Robson's home for the past 15 years. The house, built in 1875, is one of only 2 listed by the National Trust in Peckolben. Extensions will provide seating for 80 people, but the original cottage will be preserved as a bar and reception area.
The wines, the presentation that we have is definitely exciting and gives me that creative feeling of doing something totally different and something very simple and unpretentious,
It's hoped the development will be open by Christmas, with first product from the winery expected next vintage. John Church, NBN News.